Welcome to our Lunchtime Live program on WJEJ. The third of the month is a partnership with Washington County Public Schools. This is Will Kaufman from the Public Information Office, and it's always a pleasure to welcome the facilities boys back in town. We've had calls, guys. There's been clamoring for you too. Rob Rollins is our Director of Facilities Planning and Development, and Mark Mills, our Director of Facilities Maintenance and Operations. We'll talk about buildings and properties and projects, and we have a full boat. Mark, you want to go first? You had center stage the other day with the school board, at least to give them to talk about the list, the deferred maintenance, the whole. What does deferred maintenance mean? First of all, I mean, what's that all about?
Well, the deferred maintenance are the types of projects that can be pushed out a little bit, that aren't mission critical, that kind of pile up over the years. Our deferred maintenance now for our school facilities are about $39.3 million. And, we work with that within our budget, our operations budget, and some other programs to try to get some of that maintenance done through maintenance projects, contracts, internal forces. Even our custodial team does some of those projects. So it's a pretty big undertaking to try to keep track of all that, but it's what we do.
How do you prioritize?
Well, we have three priority levels. Priority one would be the mission critical stuff, and most of that deferred maintenance are pushed down a little bit, but not out long term because. Right. Imminent failure to one of those types of systems, like a boiler or a chiller or even a roof, could maybe close school for a while, and that's one of the things we try to keep ahead of. Our priority two stuff are a lot of bleacher repairs, a lot of flooring projects, some sidewalks and macadam, parking lots, that kind of thing. Some exterior lighting or lighting projects inside, and then our priority three would be stuff like painting. Maybe carpet replacement, some ceiling tile, smaller things, but those smaller things add up sometimes to be a lot more of the pie than the actual mission critical stuff.
When you say mission critical, we don't want to give people an indication that that their grandchildren, their children, that a roof is going to fall on somebody's head anytime in the next 10 minutes or so. I mean, it's not that.
No, absolutely not. For a roof, for example, most of our roofs will go on our deferred maintenance at 20 years, where the warranty is kind of ends up. That's the end of the warranty period, so it goes on our list at 20 years. Now, it might be in great shape, and we may be able to get 5 to 10 more years out of that particular roof, which we'll try to push it out that far if we can. If not, it goes in our planning and it gets turned over to Rob for design for replacement, and we make sure that it's not a faulty roof. The faulty roofs go right to our planning and development to get them taken care of. Right. But these are roofs that are aging. They've reached their limit of the warranty, and we're looking at putting them on a list and putting them in the right priority where they are in condition-wise.
I assume every school is on the list.
Oh, every school. Except our new schools. For instance, Bester Elementary, we just opened. No real deferred maintenance in that school. Maybe if we would have had some additional sidewalks that were there that we didn't replace when we built the school, they might have been on the deferred maintenance list, but there's nothing at Bester at this time.
Who has input into the list? Because here's what, and the reason I ask, you have to have 40-some principals who say, hey guys, we could use this, or that. And not necessarily the principals, whoever the staff members are that are going to, be the liaisons with you guys. Where do you get input from on projects and on needs?
Well, the needs do come from the principals and their head custodians. Okay. Through our work order system, that's part of what gets on our deferred maintenance as work request. We'll also meet with the principals and talk about projects at their school. I also do a facilities assessment every year for the Educational Facilities Master Plan. And then my staff, my foremen and my mechanics that all do, the tradesmen, all look at those systems and when they do their preventive maintenance and their inspections, and they help build part of the actual criteria for when we would replace something.
Right. This is our local. This is all a local formula and a local system. There aren't any guidelines that we're following from anywhere else. Is that the case?
Well, there are some guidelines that you use. There are some life cycle analyses that have been done on various pieces of equipment that we use as far as where that deferred piece of equipment might go. For instance, a roof would be 20 years. A chiller could be 30 years. Those are the type of life cycle that are industry standards. We use those, but we also do use a lot of our internal experience that we've done throughout the years, what my mechanics, what my foremen see in the buildings, what the planning and development department sees when they're out looking at other projects also. So it's a pretty scientific approach.
Right.
We look at lots of different items, and I use a inspection sheet that we created a couple years ago that kind of mirrors what this public school construction program looks at when they come do their annual inspections of schools. And we'll use some of the same criteria they use in some of the same systems. And we weight certain items. For instance, in my system, a roof would be weighted at a number 3. So if it was a 1, for instance, for being the worst, or 0, well, we'll use 1. If a 1 for being the worst, then it would get 3 points. If it was a 5 for being good, it would get 15 points. So it would work out through an algorithm that would give us an actual rating for each building.
Wait, so if I Googled like the mill, is there anything like the Mills method?
No.
Where you should get that patented.
No. No,
that'd be great.
There is no Mills method. It's just something that we
Right.
use with the inspection sheets and how the criteria is done and kind of weighting things.
Is there anything like school buses where you have to move them on after, there's a certain life cycle in your term, and then you may get an extra year or two or whatever that time frame is? Do you have, like with a roof, once you reach 20 or 30, you got to replace it, or is that's all judgment?
Yeah, that's all judgment
Okay.
and the actual condition. I mean, we could have a 20-year-old roof that needs to be replaced now, and we could have a 30-year-old roof that could be in better condition, depending on where the school's at, what it's seeing weather-wise, are there trees around it? Is it seeing constant sun? So it depends on where it's at and,
Right.
and the kind of the condition it's got.
I know summer is really, really busy because you have to squeeze a lot of work into a relatively short period of time. What were the highlights this past summer when the buildings weren't being used in the same very active, very full-time way that they are during the school year?
Well, the maintenance side of the house, we completed about 38 different projects throughout probably 25 different locations. We got a lot of our painting done. We got some flooring replaced. We did a tremendous amount of sidewalks and macadam repair this past summer. At Hickory Elementary, for instance, we actually were able to put up some partitions there. It's an open school that we're able to kind of close up a little bit to make some organization at the school. That was a really positive change for that school. I think the students were surprised when they came back and saw that their whole school was kind of organized with these partitions. So, and we did lots of other things that are maintenance related. Most frequently would be our preventive maintenance that we've done.
Right.
In the summertime, that's the time when there are no students, we can work on some of the air handling equipment and terminal units. So there was a lot of work done with the maintenance guys doing that.
What work can be done when students are in the building?
Well, depending on our newer schools, depending on what kind of equipment needs to be worked on. Some of our newer schools have some equipment in mechanical spaces that don't interfere with the classroom.
Okay.
So we can do some of that. Work in the hallways. If exterior work, for instance, right now we're out. Our painters are out painting light poles in the exterior of the building where we don't really interfere with any of the student day. So those are the types of things we like to do in this time of year.
Does facilities work boy, this is such a vanilla question, but does it last longer? Do roofs last longer than ever before? Do chillers last longer? I mean,
I don't know that they last any longer than they
Okay.
did years before. One of the things that we look at when stuff starts to get to its age, equipment gets to its age, is what we replace it with. Is it more efficient as far as electrical? I mean, are we going to save electricity because we put this unit in instead of leaving the old one in? The old adage, or they don't build things like they used to.
Right.
Well, that's true, but we don't drive around in a lot of Model Ts anymore either. But those cars that we're driving today are very sophisticated. They're very efficient, fuel efficient, and they're safer. So much like an automobile today, our equipment that we're putting in buildings and some of the building systems are safer and will last longer.
Well, it's certainly wiser from a budget standpoint, from an efficiency standpoint, to deal in the whole world of green and efficiency and all of that. I mean, Rob can weigh in too. Certainly, when we're looking at building new facilities, that's part of our thrust. Are we forced to do that? Either when it comes to your side of the house, Mark, or Rob? I mean, Rob, I know we've had this conversation before.
Right. So there's legislation from the state that requires that we build highly efficient buildings. So there's a law that was passed a few years ago called the High Performance Act, which requires all of our facilities, new facilities, to be designed to meet the Green Building Council's LEED Silver certification, which just is a mark of a certain amount of sustainability using products that are sustainable as well as energy efficiency. So we do that. I like to think we would do that anyway. And in fact, as we knew that the law was coming in force when we built Antietam Academy, although we weren't required by law, that building could have been certified. We didn't certify it because we didn't want to spend the money for a piece of paper. So we were trying to wisely use the taxpayers' dollars. We built it to the efficiency and sustainability standards, but we didn't spend the extra $80,000 for a piece of paper we could hang on the wall. Well, that school has a geothermal system, for instance.
Right. Aside from the paper part of it and $80,000 for a document, how much? What is there a significant difference in the cost of building or doing energy efficient or doing environmentally sound work on our buildings and facilities?
The cost of the mechanical systems go up a little bit, but an overall project you might see, it's hard to calculate really, and over the years it changes. The more contractors are familiar with these systems, the more systems that are bought and therefore available commercially, the prices go down, but probably between 2 to 5% more to build an efficient building like that. But the payback is generally within 7 to 10 years. So as we calculate it, and I think the cost per square foot on the energy usage has borne out those the facts, Mark. I think you have a guy that tracks that, and on the newer schools, the cost per square foot to heat, cool, and light those schools is greatly reduced from some of the older schools.
I just think it's that there are always, no matter what the institution is, whether it's a school system or a county or a city government or anybody who's dealing in major cost types of projects, I don't think it doesn't appear as if anybody can howl and say, I don't know why they have to do it that way, meaning energy efficient, because it's costing the taxpayer an extra $12 million. I mean, that's really not what's happening.
No. If you were 5% on a $10 million project, that's $500,000.
Right. Jonathan Hager Elementary, how about a progress update there?
It's going very well. The contractor's performing excellently out there, and we aim to be open. The school will be completed in the March-April time frame, which gives us time to move all our furnishings and equipment in, have the staff acclimated to the school, be ready right when school ends for the rest of the schools to be able to start moving teachers and who would be populating the new school into their new places without having that rush at the end of the summer. So we bid that one in a way and scheduled it such that we could be open and ready for business in that March-April time frame. It's going well. I encourage anybody out there listening who wants to take a look at it to instead of
listen to you offering up the tours
when you come off of you can't get into school, but drive by it. It really looks good. It's located behind the shopping center out there. Is it Hagerstown?
Yeah, so it's
out
of
Walmart.
Hager's Crossing.
It's out in Hager's Crossing development. Instead of turning right as you come in off of 40 and going to the stores, turn left and head back to the traffic circle in that community, and you'll see the new school going up right in front of you. It's all the windows in, the roof's on, mechanical systems are being completed. It's going to be really, really nice, and I think it's a good fit for that community. A lot of kids be able to walk to school there and such.
So the visual right now is, there's a lot of interior work still to be done, but the exterior view, I guess, other than landscaping, is is a pretty good shot.
Coming right
now.
along. Some playgrounds are in. I think they're getting ready to put up the school sign, believe it or not. Some of the paving's being done now, and the play fields are being final graded here and seeded. So, no, it's looking really good. All the masonry, brick, and other finishes on the outside are finishing up.
Was there anything on an original checklist that was sort of a heads up? Hey, boy, let's keep an eye on this part of this project or that part of this project. Were there any of those things that ever came to be? Any concerns along the way, in the early going particularly, where, well, that worked out, or this worked out, or we had to make a decision on this, and this? Anything like that?
They're all sort of mundane. But one of the things we do is we make sure we have a good compact site that we construct upon. So a lot of times when you're building any building, you run into unforeseen ground conditions. So we combat that by over excavating and infilling with a hard shale product that gives you a building table that you can come in and come up out of almost regardless of weather and such, so that it doesn't, you pay a little bit more up front, but your project can then come out of the ground that much more efficiently.
Right. And you should say mundane proudly, because I think in the world of you guys, mundane is a great description. Right. Which
compliment.
Not about you guys, but about if we're talking about mundane, that means there aren't any surprises, there aren't any ambushes, there aren't any crises.
A lot of that just comes from spending a good amount of time on the planning side of things and making sure you have a design that's constructible. And so we work with our architects and engineers. We pore over the plans as they're being done, as do they. You hire highly qualified architects and engineers. You work together as a team. You think about, as you're designing it, how is that going to be to build? Is that going to be difficult? Is there an odd angle here, or is there a difficult situation there? And you try to eliminate as much of those as you can while still having a creative atmosphere for students to be in.
Do we have an idea of what we want, or do we leave that to the architect and we say, no, we could use this, and this? I mean, do we come in with, we know what kind of school we want?
Yeah.
Or how does that
we
work?
have a set of design standards that we give to the architects that talk about the kind of finishes and things like that we want. A lot of those things are put into that standard with Mark's folks in mind, so that you have a building that's easy to maintain. So and sometimes architects come with, well, we should try this new finish or that new finish, and we're very cautious about that. We're open to them, but we're also cautious about what that means long term. So we have a lot of control over what we put in these buildings.
I never really thought about that before. So even with a brand spanking new building, I mean, we're factoring in ultimately, so to speak, the maintenance side. Not that there'll be maintenance, but I mean the maintenance side of it. That's a good angle.
Absolutely. The penthouses that Mark mentioned earlier that contain all the mechanical equipment, which may have been located in a previous school or an older school above the ceiling of a classroom. Well, you can't work on that while students are there. Or against the wall, the outside wall of a classroom. You can't work on that. These are up in a area that's just a big mechanical room within the sloped roof of the building. We have these sloped roofs, and people would look at those sloped roofs and think, well, that's a good idea to get the water off the roof instead of a flat roof. But there's an area up there that can be used then inside that sloped roof, like an attic of a house, to put all our mechanical equipment in. That way Mark's guys can go up there. If one classroom's unit goes bad, they can work on it without interrupting the classroom. So there's that, and then finishes, things like custodial closets. Do you have enough mop sinks in the school? Where do you put them? You all those things have to be thought of as you design a school.
That's a phenomenon. I don't think anybody really understands how immense, the planning, the design, the actual execution of these projects. I mean, first of all, it's a big place. I mean, it's a big school. It'll be, I assume, one of our bigger elementary schools.
It's not as big as say Ruth Ann Monroe or Morgansville or West Rockland
Woods.
Yeah, it's a little smaller, but we have the ability to add on to that school to make it the size of those other schools. So it's going to have an SRC of a state rated capacity.
Nice catch.
A seat.
You've been here before.
A seat capacity of 608, I believe. students, whereas those other schools are up around 740, 45 students. But we have a graded pad. It's another thing we thought about in design, to put an addition on, so it's pad ready, say, to put on another 10 classroom addition and increase the size of that school if needed, if development takes off in a way that we need that capacity.
If you're just joining us, Rob Rollins is here as our Director of Facilities Planning and Development, and Mark Mills, our Director of Facilities Maintenance and Operations, as we talk about upcoming projects, current projects, and what we work on the day-to-day. What else? I see Mr. Facebook, Dr. Boyd Michael, has been posting updates on the Williamsport High School addition, let's say.
Right.
What's that? What is that? For those who don't know, what is that project?
Sure. Well, that's an addition that's being partially funded by the Booster Group there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a public-private partnership, and we're very appreciative of those folks raising that money, because this addition probably would not be happening
Right.
without their support. So it's a fantastic partnership, and we really appreciate their bringing their dollars to the table in order to pull it off. What the project is an addition of a multi-purpose room, which will house weight equipment for all the students in the school to be able to use. It's not just for the athletes. There's lots of weight training in the phys ed curriculum now. So by putting that weight equipment in this new room, from where it is, it opens up an auxiliary gym that's been used as a weight room to be used for wrestling and other phys ed activities. So it's just an expansion of the phys ed facilities in that school. Also putting on a varsity girls team room, something they didn't have. And so that's sort of a Title IX thing, where you're trying to bring equity to sports. When these schools were built in the mid-'70s, you didn't have that focus on the ladies sports, and so it's a good thing, and we're trying to remedy that situation. And the addition also has a concession stand, which there is no indoor concession stand at that school at this point, and so that's something the boosters wanted. And so some of their money's going toward, a lot of their money's going toward that equipment and that space, so that they can further and better raise more money, so they can do more good things for the students.
Right. That's well along, right?
Yes.
Is that going to be that'll be done in time for the winter sports season?
It should open right around that time.
Yeah. I mean, give or take.
We're finishing it up in the next month and a half, hopefully.
All right. What else is on your list? I mean, what other upcoming projects? What else is new?
Well, most of our work right now is related to systemic projects, so which come from Mark's deferred maintenance needs.
Oh,
so
okay, sure.
In design right now, we have 4 roof projects they're at 3 elementary schools and two elementary schools and a high school and a middle school. We're putting some playgrounds in using public program open space money,
right,
and also some aging school money. We're putting a generator in at Williamsport High School that is being funded from some federal grant money. Putting in some generator docking stations at Old Forge Elementary and Greenbrier Elementary. What these are is we have a portable generator. These 2 schools are on well and septic, and so when the power goes out there, they not only don't have power, they don't have water and things. So what we're doing is putting a docking station instead of the full expense of a generator that just sits there most of the time not being used. We can Mark can pull a generator out to the site, hook it into this, and then power the school up.
Nice. We never thought of that. I tell you what, it's an educational experience with you guys every time you're here. I never thought of that.
The docking stations were very. We found those actually through the internet. We were looking for some other information. When we bought the generator last year, we noticed that the docking stations would be something that would be valuable. So we actually went to Rob, said, Rob, do we have any ASP money, QZAB money, Quality Zone, Academy Bond money, or any monies that we can maybe put some docking stations in that would, during an event, would save time, that we could just run the generator up, plug 3-4 wires in, and off we go. And so we're doing that project now. We actually had a design meeting this morning. So
we did. The next school project would be Sharpsburg Elementary. That's still about a year out before we would get into heavy design on that.
Yeah. And what's that?
That would be a replacement of the Sharpsburg Elementary School.
That's a pretty big project.
We'd replace it with a school that would have a capacity of 608 students. It's currently, oh boy, I'm not going to have that number in front of me. It's about a 2.5 round school, so it's probably, Mark might be able to find it.
I can.
Sorry about
You
that.
keep talking. I'll
While
tell you.
we're biding some time here.
That school would become the lowest rated school in terms of its physical. It's the oldest, one of the older ones.
Right.
A little chopped up.
Does have some age, and
it's a good community school. Where we've worked with the county at acquiring some land right adjacent to the current school site, and we would then build a new school on that land, and keeping the current school open at the time. And the current capacity of the school is 252.
Mm-hmm.
We would take that to 471, I believe. What that would do, that additional capacity would relieve some of the crowding in the schools in the South County.
Right.
So 2 birds with 1 stone.
Right, and it is easily not our jurisdiction today to talk about where students will be going when changes are made to facilities. For instance, it's a whole nother show and a whole nother topic to talk about how we're going to populate Jonathan Hager Elementary and what. Although I can at least pitch at you the whole notion of what are the options when we close the doors for full-time activity at Winter Street and Conecuh-Jig. What are the options for those 2 buildings?
Well, that's something that the Board of Education
Right.
has to decide. What the Board of Education can do with a building is keep it and decide what they want to do with it, or they can turn it back to the county. The Board of Ed can't sell a building. It's a community asset, so all the board can do is turn it back to the people that initially funded the construction of that school, which are the commissioners and the citizens of Washington County. So we would, if the board so chose, they could determine that the buildings are surplus and return them to the county, who they would then decide the disposition of those buildings.
But those two buildings will be off your plates.
Yes.
I mean, that'll
Unless the board decides to keep them.
right, and
Which
then
they could.
for whatever the use would be.
Right.
Which those 2 buildings then would come off my list for deferred maintenance if we did turn them back over to the county. So that would help our overall bottom line on the deferred maintenance.
It's unending it's unending in your 2 offices. How do you feel about? From your corner, it's never a dull moment. But how would you describe your list? How would you describe the work environment, the project environment in your office?
The list is very fluid. It changes almost daily.
Right.
Even when we think we have everything in order, something else will come up. And needs of the school system, for most buildings, I cannot walk into a building and not see something that needs to be done. And to their benefit, to the building managers, the principals, and the custodial staff, they do the very best of keeping those up. And my maintenance staff does a great job at maintaining them and finishing work orders. But we get probably between 40 and 50 work orders every day. And we, with a staff of, about 28 to 32 craftsmen, we're getting more work orders than we have craftsmen, but they're doing the very best they can to keep up with it. And so there are sometimes we have to prioritize those work orders and say, well, that one's not as critical as this one is because the power just went out at this school. We've got to go. So those things happen.
Do you make rounds?
We do.
You.
Yeah, I do. Matter of fact, I'll be starting my rounds to prepare for the educational facilities master plan for my regular assessment. I'll be starting those in the next 45 days probably.
Right. Very good. We're out of time. I appreciate you guys, as always, coming on. Rob Rollins is Director of Facilities Planning and Development with Washington County Public Schools, and Mark Mills on the other side of that set of offices, the Director of Facilities Maintenance and Operations. It's Lunchtime Live. We're on the 3rd Thursday of the month at this time on WJEJ.